Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Gotcha. Don't need the microphone? Cool. All right. My name is Mike. As Evan said, I'm a former student in the Product Academy. Before I was a student in the Product Academy, I was actually a high school teacher for 7 years in Florida. Dropped everything, enrolled in Make School, best decision of my life. Now I know all kinds of cool code stuff. Before I was an English teacher, I was scared of math, still kind of am. So I'm really stoked to be working with you guys and girls today, okay? Two things before we get started. First, okay, anything that we cover today, we should make it through everything. If we don't, no worries. Makeschool.com/academy. We're giving you guys access to this tutorial and to a ton of other great tutorials. If you're brand new to iOS, this is a great place to start because calculating how much to tip, not super hard unless you're at a restaurant and you've had a couple drinks, then it's really hard. But in general, the reason we're picking this one is because it allows us to go deep into like how to use Xcode and how to play around with UIKit and all the other great stuff in Swift. And we don't have to worry about all that CS theory stuff. Now, if you know all that good stuff, that's great. You can take that, apply it to what you're doing here, build some really cool stuff. But if we're just getting started with Apple, and this is the first time or first couple times you've opened Xcode, this is a great place to start. If you do have some experience, don't worry. We've got tutorials that'll take you all the way through like cloning Instagram, complete with a parse backend, so an actual cloud backend. Pretty cool, okay? So makeschool.com/academy. I know it says login right here. It'll bring you to this here, okay? You'll just want to create a free account. We have like hundreds of hours of material on there. Anybody into game development, anybody want to make an iOS game? Whole track on that too, okay? Take you through cloning like a Flappy Bird clone all the way up to like a Timberman clone, other stuff like that. Get you comfortable with SpriteKit. It's all there, okay? So makeschool.com/academy because you're not going to remember everything I said, but you will be able to have access to this and just run with it and study at your own pace, okay? Second thing we're going to talk about here, we're going to be obviously working inside of Xcode, okay? So if you do not have Xcode downloaded, sorry, but you're going to need to download it first. Apple still kind of requires that all iOS development be done on a Mac in their environment. There is app code and some other things there. I'm not too familiar with them. In general, professional iOS developers use Xcode because it's awesome, okay? So if you don't have that downloaded, go to the App Store, download Xcode. Unfortunately, it's like a 7 gig download, so it might take you a little while. Again, don't sweat it. This tutorial is available online if you miss this here or if you're waiting on the download so you can go through it. If at any point you have questions, go ahead and raise a hand, and Mador, Luca will come around to help, okay? Evan knows this stuff as well. We will kind of roll through this. I will be here for most of the coding session to help you out as well if you have questions. So don't be offended if I just kind of steamroll through this stuff here, because I do want us to get through all of it, okay? We ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay, I would like everybody to go ahead and open Xcode, please. You should see your screen like this here, and we're going to create a new Xcode project, okay? We are going to see this screen here. This is just a bunch of preloaded templates that Apple can give you. They got all kinds of cool stuff as of Xcode 8, Swift 3, iOS 10, like iMessage applications, sticker packs. I think we had some Make School students just make like a Harambe sticker pack. So it's a ton of cool stuff you can do. In general, single view applications, usually where you want to be. It's where we want to be this time here. That's basically saying, give me a blank slate. All these things are cool. When you get a little bit more advanced, you probably could figure out or intuit what these things are. For instance, page-based application. Anybody give me an example of an app that probably uses like a page-based application? Instagram? Is Instagram that, or does that have tabs at the bottom? So that would be a tabbed application. I was thinking like Snapchat. I know it gives the dots here. When you slide back and forth, that's one. Tab application, all that. Now, all they're doing here is they're basically giving you, they said, hey, we've done all the deployment stuff and thrown this in here for you. I prefer to start with a single view because I like to drag those things in myself and configure them. We're going to be doing something super simple. We don't need any of this fancy stuff here. So we're going to do single view application. And we'll see this screen here. I need a product name. I'm going to call this tip calculator. It's okay to use spaces here because Apple will fill it in down here with dashes here. It'll probably make you give a team and an organization name if this is your first time working in Xcode. Don't worry about it. This bundle identifier here, this is pretty cool. This is like your web address on the App Store if you do decide to ship your app to the App Store. So it has to be unique. What we'll want to focus on is this thing right here. This is most important. Language set to Swift. Anybody worked with Objective-C before? It's a horrible language. Swift is awesome. Objective-C, a little bit harder. The syntax is not as crisp here. So yes, we're going to stay in our nice, comfy, cozy world of Swift. Device. Let's stick to iPhone. Doesn't really matter. For these here, we're going to leave these unchecked. If you do have these checked on accident, not a big deal. It's just going to add in some framework stuff. It's going to make your project bigger, maybe build a little bit slower, but it'll still work. This is more for production level stuff, okay? We're going to go ahead and click next. It's going to ask, where do we want to put this? I'm just going to throw it anywhere on my desktop. Doesn't really matter. And we're going. Okay? So, before we get going here, let's take a look at what Xcode is so we know our environment, okay? In the center, this is our work area. Pretty obvious here, okay? On the left side of the screen here, over here, this is my file system, okay? So anytime you create a new app, it's going to have these guys right here, okay? There's a couple files that you'll be working with all the time that are common to any iOS project. One is your main.storyboard, okay? And this is where we'll do all our visual layout stuff in something called Interface Builder. What's it called? Interface Builder. Oh, you guys got to wake up. All right. Another thing we'll work with here, we won't work with it today, but App Delegate. Have you ever wondered, like, hey, when I want my app to run in the background, or when my app crashes, I want to know about it, or I want to, I don't know, I want it to save all the data before somebody exits out. It's done in the App Delegate. App Delegate is what allows your app to talk to the actual operating system on the iPhone. All this crazy stuff, good news, we don't have to worry about it today. Okay? The majority of your work in any iOS project, and certainly what we'll be doing today, is going to be in main.storyboard and in a view controller file. Okay? So, Apple uses this design pattern called Model View Controller, or MVC for short. Okay? Raise your hand if you've heard MVC before. Okay? Can anybody tell me in like a tweetable size explanation what it is?
It's pretty much separating your graphic user interface from the data handling in the back end.
Excellent answer. He said it's pretty much separating your graphical user interface from the data handling in the background. Now, why is that important? Again?
If you data handled in the view, it would slow it down in loading like buttons and stuff.
Absolutely. So if you do things in the view, then the user interface will seem like it's frozen. You ever use an app and all of a sudden you load something, usually it's pulling from the internet, and it seems like it's frozen, the button clicks don't work? Usually it's not frozen, it's just they're doing something on the main thread, so it's waiting on a download, which means it's not responding to your touches. Okay? Another good reason might be for security. Okay? Think of it like this. How many people use a banking app on their phone? Okay? So you open a banking app, where does it get that data?
Back in the database.
It's connecting to, for instance, I have like USAA. It has to go to USAA and get my specific banking info, right? Well, they probably don't want to give me access to just do whatever and touch all the data in their database. Because if they did, I would probably change my account balance from something like $8 currently to like $8 billion. Well, they don't want you, they want me to be able to read it, but they want to choose what access I have here. Well, that means they need a controller in the middle. So you have the view, hey, here's what your bank balance is. You have the model of all the data, hey, this is what we're actually storing things in here. You need a view controller that's an intermediary that says, okay, handle this touch, take this data, put it in this shape, pass it off to the model. We do most of our work in a view controller for that reason. If that's all you understand about it now, you'll be good for like the next 3 or 4 months of iOS development, okay? So, homework, read up on MVC, but don't lose any sleep over it if you don't understand it, okay? We notice this looks like an iPhone screen. Okay, I'm going to close my file system here to give me more room on the screen. I can zoom in, all this good stuff here. That's good, okay? Now, if I were to build this right now by clicking the play button, it would work. I would have a fully functional iPhone app. It would just be probably a very boring iPhone app since it does and shows literally nothing. Okay? So I have to teach it how to do some things. We see the emulator spinning up here. So go ahead and build real quick here. I want you to notice a couple things. It tells me what kind of phone I'm building for. Okay? I can choose that up here. Apple is awesome because it comes with, it makes Xcode come with simulators. Okay? And this is a perfect simulation of an iPhone 7 Plus. Okay, I can change the zoom. If first time you build, yours probably looks like that, or it's huge. Cool, we can just go to Window, scale it down. Cool, all right, that's good. But again, I haven't done anything to it, so it shows me nothing. I'm going to go ahead and pause that, and let's get started. Okay? This is my debugger down here with a bunch of jargon I don't need to know. I'm going to close that as well. What I do need to know is my object library over here, okay? So on the right side of Xcode, if you don't see this, you can click on this tab right here. Everybody see that? I can move these panes and give myself some space. If you don't see it, we're there. Apple has pre-built a bunch of really cool objects for us to use so that we don't have to say, hey, I need to design a text view. I need to design a button from the ground up. I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. I'd rather just use what Apple has pre-built. Cool, we got that. We can run with it, okay? So if you don't see all these things here, make sure you're on the third one right here that says Show Object Library. I know the text is a little small. I'm right here, okay? What I'm going to go through here is I'm going to go ahead and I need some text fields because I need a place for the user to enter their data, okay? I also probably need a calculate button, where I can say, okay, well wait, they've entered their data, now go ahead and calculate it, okay? Now, we're going to do a scaled down version of the tip calculator. This is going to be very simple. We're going to have one text field, two text fields. We're going to have, let's say, okay, what's your bill and how much do you want to tip? Okay? Actually, I take that back. We use a segmented control for that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to hit enter and it'll take the user input and just spit it out and great. Okay? Again, we're doing a very slim, lightweight version of this tutorial. Your assignment to go ahead and finish this up here is to go through the actual full tip calculator app on makeschool.com/academy. Okay? You'll find it in the iOS apps track. So let's get started. Go ahead and find label in this over here, okay? I'm going to take this label and I'm going to drag it onto my screen here, okay? And I can double click on it and change what it says fairly easily. Hello world, because what are programmers if nothing without their tropes, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and, so one thing I'll notice here is if I put this down here in the middle or something like that, and I build it, now I haven't actually pinned it to where I want it to be. So when I build it here, I won't be surprised if this thing's way out in left field. Yep, it's a little bit off center here, okay? You'll notice as you lay things out that if you don't pin them where they need to be with constraints, they're going to take a walk on you, okay? So the reason for this is that if you think about all the different device sizes and the pixel counts in each of those devices, an older iPhone might be smaller, or it might not have as good a resolution, or something like that. So what Apple has done here is they've purposely designed it in such a way that when you're designing what your layout looks like, they want you to think in terms of relative positions. Okay? They don't want you to build for just one style of phone. Because what we don't want to have happen is I own an iPhone 6 Plus or 6S Plus. I don't want to do all my design for that, and it looks great on that phone, but on any other kind of iPhone it looks like crap. So what that means here is that I need to be able to say, well, no matter how big the phone is or how small the phone is, I want it to have about this much space from the left side. And I want it to be about this much space from the top of the iPhone. And the iPhone itself will handle the calculations and say, oh, well, it needs to be right here on an iPhone 5. It's actually going to be this many pixels in an iPhone 7 Plus or something like that. The way we set those constraints is we hold the Control key. I click on my label, and I drag. You'll see that little blue line pop up there. And you can see it changes. It's tough to see on this screen, but you get like a little light blue thing on the entire view here. That's basically saying what you're pointing to. I'm going to release it, and I'm going to say leading space to container margin. Okay? That's saying, hey, I always want this much space. Now, you can spend a couple weeks going through all the different things Interface Builder and Auto Layout can do. For our intents and purposes today, we just want to make it functional, okay? So we'll notice that if I do that, I have a blue line. This is a constraint. It's saying, okay, it'll have this much space. But it also has a red line around it, and I have a little warning up here. If I look at what it says, vertical position is ambiguous for hello world. Okay? Well, what's that mean? What it means is that I've set basically the x-axis. Hey, I want it this far in, but I haven't said anything about the y. So we'll do the same thing. Control, click, drag, release, vertical spacing to top layout guide. Hooray, cool. Easy enough. That's constraints. Okay? Now, if I build it, it'll look the same. We're not going to waste our time with that. This is cool. It's a little bit tedious. So I'm going to show you a shortcut. Okay? The shortcut is let's go ahead and drag a couple things on here. Okay? The shortcut will be we're going to use Auto Layout to let Apple suggest what the constraints will be. So let's go ahead and change Hello World to what it's actually going to say here. Okay? So let's, we need them to enter the total bill amount, so let's change our Hello World to say that. So we say enter total, yeah, enter total amount. Okay. I have some yellow or orange lines here. You'll get this a lot too as you move things around. Can anybody tell me what's going on with this? Okay, well, let's look at our error. I can see it over here. Frame for enter total amount will be different at runtime. Well, here's what Apple is saying to, or Xcode is saying to us here. It said, hey, you told me that you want exactly this much space with a constraint. And you want exactly this much space with a constraint. And you can see there's little tiny numbers in here, -29, -2. What it's saying is, you told me to have this much space, but then you moved something. So when you run it, I'm going to go back to what that constraint is, and it's going to look weird. So basically it's saying what you see right here is not what you will get when you build it. There's an easy fix for that. We're going to go ahead and click on this. And I'm going to go down to the Auto Layout button down here. All right, resolve auto layout issues. I know you can't see it real well here, but it's a little triangle. Looks like a little triangle inside a TIE fighter, okay? I love Star Trek. Okay. So if I go down here, I can see update frames, update constraints, add missing constraints, reset to suggested constraints, and clear. First and foremost, let's say update frames. Well, it's shifted, okay? Now it's no longer centered because I have a longer text over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this back to the center, okay? I'm going to increase the size of this here. We're going to let it complain. Let's make this a little bit bigger, okay? I'm going to go ahead and add a segmented control here. Segmented controls are awesome, okay? You've probably seen these before. I'm going to change what this says here, okay? So how much should, so I should probably have, let's say, 3 different values for tipping here. What should my lowest be? 10%? Y'all a bunch of cheapskates. All right. Second, I'll make it 15%. Well, oh, wait, I need more, okay? So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go over to right here. Now, this entire right side is meant to allow me to access and kind of change around any objects I have here. So if I want to know what class it is, I'm going to click on the little note card guy up here. And I see it's just a basic UI segmented control. Well, I don't really care about that. What I do care about right now is how to change it around. Okay? So I'm going to click on this thing here that looks like a little tiara. Looks like what Luke Cage wears. Y'all made it through that yet? Great show. And I can see, oh, it's got all these different options here. Okay, well, this should help. I don't want 2 segments. I want 3. Oh, look at that. It changed it for me here, okay? So what's great about this is although you could do all this stuff programmatically by just like changing around your code in your view controller file that contains all that, that's a little bit tedious. I usually like to see what it looks like first, so I can do it all by clicking and dragging and buttons and stuff before I write any code. So I'm going to click on this last one here. Whoops, zoom in. And I'm going to say 20%. Cool, looks good. Okay. Now, I have a segmented control. I have a label that does nothing except it just sits there and looks pretty, but it's informing my user what this is meant for here. But maybe I want the text field to say that too. So let's add some placeholder text here. So again, I've clicked on the text field. I go to placeholder text, and I'm just going to repeat that. So I'll say bill amount. And I get a little grayed out background thing here. And when I run the app, if I click on that, that text will disappear. It'll only show up when it's empty. I won't have to worry about it accidentally being part of my calculations, any of that good stuff, okay? I'm missing one more thing, which is a label to display how much I should tip, okay? So let's say tip amount is going to be right there. I'm going to make this really big. Okay? And again, feel free to make this your own. Feel free to change the layout, do something different than me here. You're not going to break anything. If you do, it's not my fault. Okay? I'm going to drag another one down here. I'm going to say total bill amount. Okay? And I'm just laying these guys out. Okay? And I'm going to center it the same way with alignment right here. If I wanted to change the text color, I could do that. Okay? If I wanted to change the background color of these things, I could do that. All right? I'm not going to because we're going to keep this super simple. One thing I am going to do, I'm going to move all this up a little bit here. So that way it'll still be visible when my keyboard opens up and the user starts typing. Okay? We do have stuff in our tutorials about how to close the keyboard when you're done using it. That's beyond the scope of this tutorial because you have to do stuff with like first responders and all that. It's a little bit more advanced. So for now, we're just going to move the stuff up high so that the keyboard won't block it. Okay? And what am I finally missing here? A button. I need a button to say go ahead and calculate it. I'm going to change it to calculate. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And I will change the background color of this here. Somebody give me a color.
Red.
Red. All right. Blue and red. Go Patriots. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this should be enough here. Okay. Now, again, I haven't pinned these things in place. So I'm going to go ahead and build it. And I guarantee we're going to have things take a walk on us here. They're going to be all over the place. So after that happens, we're going to look at auto layout and we're going to say, hey, Apple, just tell me what constraints I should use. Simulator's taking its time. Still faster than an Android simulator. Oh, no, yeah, that looks like crap. They're all over the place. Okay? And that's because one of these things has a constraint or constraint set. The others don't. It's just kind of guessing. Okay? Notice I can click on these things. Okay? I can click the calculate button. I can click on bill amount, and if yep, there's my hardware keyboard here. By the way, if you are just able to type in there and you want to see, no, I want the full experience, you can go to hardware, you can go to keyboard, and you can do connect hardware keyboard. Right now I have it unchecked, so the iPhone simulator is actually bringing up its own keyboard, and I can type by clicking on the keys. But if I'm testing it and I want to be quick, I can do that, and I can just type with my keyboard in there. Okay? I know the layout looks okay with keyboard height there, but I need to fix these. Okay? So let's pause it. I hit the stop button here. Well, I want it to look like this. Well, luckily, Interface Builder is pretty intelligent. I can click on my little triangle TIE fighter here, and Xcode's pretty smart. It has this thing called auto layout. It can look at how I've laid it out, and it can say, hey, if you want your app to look like it pretty much looks right now, we suggest you use these constraints. Cool. Fine by me. So I clicked on, again, the triangle-shaped TIE fighter right here. I can go to Reset to Suggested Constraints. Okay? And now if I click on any of these guys, look, they all have these little blue lines that suggest constraints. Auto layout has done the work for me. If I build it now, it should look about the same. No guarantees. Auto layout is 100% accurate 70% of the time. Okay, so it looks pretty good now. Okay, so sometimes you're trying to do something more advanced, it'll look all kinds of weird. Okay, and you'll have to go in and set the constraints yourself. It takes practice to know when to do one, when to do the other. Usually I use reset to suggested constraints because I'm lazy, and if it looks like crap, I'll go in and fix them manually, and that's about it. Okay, but that looks good. So let's get to the fun stuff, which is actually connecting this to my code. So we talked about model view controller as a design pattern. This is a view controller. Okay, well, this is its layout. Interface Builder lets you do the layout with all these objects, but the corresponding code file, which is viewcontroller.swift, does not yet know that the segmented control, this label, that label, anything at all exists. So what I need to be able to do is say, hey, code file, these things exist. You can now manipulate them as needed. You can grab data from them if there's data to grab. You can manipulate what it says if you're a label, or change the background color, or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the little yellow ball up here. All right, should say View Controller when you hover over it. If I go to my Identity Inspector, the note card one, we'll notice it says View Controller in here. Well, wait, I have a file over here on my file system called viewcontroller.swift. Perfect, okay? And what's going to happen here, if I look at viewcontroller.swift, yep, that looks familiar, okay? I'm going to go back to main.storyboard. I'm going to click on this here, and I'm going to open the assistant editor. All right? It's a little Venn diagrams thing right here in the middle. Okay. You know, I said I'm not good at math, but I rock at some Venn diagrams, okay? So notice how it opens both of them here. The assistant editor is making a guess. Well, you're clicked on this view controller in your interface builder. That means you probably want to see the associated class, the code file that contains the class that this corresponds to. Great job, Xcode. If yours is not, it might say something like interface. You can know because it won't let you type and stuff like that here. For instance, some of you guys might see, and not even worry about it. Okay. If this is giving you trouble, you can always click on, yours might say manual. You can always just click on automatic, say, is this the correct file? Or better yet, go to manual. Yes, in the tip calculator project. Yes, inside of this folder. And you can select the files manually. We want to be in viewcontroller.swift. Great, we have it. I'm going to give myself some room to work. First, let me change the text size so you guys can see. Is that large enough for you, or do you need a little larger? People in the back, can you read the text? Okay, we'll leave it as this then. Okay, so I'm going to give myself some room to work. I need to connect these things here. Okay, so I'm going to start by click, drag over. All right, so control, click, drag, just like we set the constraints. I'm going to drag across here. Okay, I'm going to release. We'll see this little dude pop up. This is to help me set my IB outlets, IB for Interface Builder outlets. This is how your code file knows this stuff in your Interface Builder exists. I need to give it a name. Let's give it a very semantic, a very obvious name. So I'm going to call this tip amount segmented control. Notice there are no spaces in there. If you're a coder, do not use spaces. It'll confuse everything here. One thing you need to do, you need to make sure it is set to outlet. Storage, yes, weak. Don't set it to strong. Don't worry about that. It has to do with memory management. You're pretty much just going to want to trust what it says. You'll make sure it's set to outlet, give it a name, connect. Hey, look at that. I see this little ball here. If I hover over it, great. Well, wait. What if I made a typo? And I said, wait, I want to delete all this. I don't like the name I gave that. If I go to run this right now, it will crash. Let's prove it. There's a reason for this. Oh, Swift 3, I guess I changed it. Okay. False alarm. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. You may change, like it's very common in the beginning to like make a typo on something like that here. You have to disconnect it manually. So if I change the name over here, let's say I called it, tip calculator, but I spelled it with an extra C in there or something like that. I don't know. Just updating it over here will not update it over here. You'll have to two-finger click, and I see, oh, this is still connected, but I deleted it over here. Very often you'll get some sort of weird error that talks about like key value coding compliant. Just understand that if you delete something over here, you need to go over here and right-click, which is just two-finger click on the object, delete it over here as well. That'll save you a lot of time when you start making mistakes, because when you're new, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. I know I did. I still do. So let's do it again. Drag it over. We're just going to go down the list, and we're going to create outlets for all of these except for the button. So go ahead and feel free to blow right by me and do that as well. I'm going to call this tip amount segmented control. Yes. I don't need to connect enter total amount, because that's never going to change. I just need that to sit there and look pretty. Okay? I do need to connect this, because I need to grab data from it. Okay? I'm going to say user input text field. Yes, it's an outlet. Cool. I do need to connect these two labels, because the text on these is going to change as it calculates. Tip amount. Cool. I'm going to say tip amount label. That works. And I'm going to say bill amount label. Okay, I'm going to say total bill amount label. Cool. All right, so these are all connected. I know they're connected to the correct things here, because if I hover over this little ball, I can see that. Great. Yep, yep, yep. Those are all right. Okay. Finally, I need to calculate button to connect over. But this isn't going to be an outlet. This is going to be an action. Why?
It's going to register the user's action of clicking on the button.
Exactly. I don't care about the button itself. The button is a trigger to me to say, hey, when the user presses this, they want something to happen. So my app should do something. It should take action when a button is pressed. If I had it as an outlet, I could like modify the color of the button, the size of the button, all that, but I don't want to do that. I want to know that it's pressed and do something when that happens. So I'm going to set the action, and I'm going to say calculate button pressed. And notice it gives me a function. The function is empty. It doesn't do anything right now, but that's okay. We're going to add in our code here. Okay? Now, if we had more time, I would probably create another helper function that just picked, it would figure out how much to calculate and kind of help out and do the calculations for displaying all this. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to throw it all right here in the calculate button pressed. Okay? So, what's the first thing I need to do to get this calculation? Well, I need to know a couple things. I need to know how much they want to tip and what is their total amount. Okay? So, I'm going to grab those things and store them in constants. Okay? I'm going to store them in a constant with using let as opposed to a variable, because inside the scope of this function, I'm going to grab the segmented control. I don't ever need to change it again while this function is running. In one go, it'll create it, use it, go, but I'm never going to change it again. They may change it, hit it again, but cool, that's an entirely different run. Okay, so I'm going to say let tip percentage. I'm going to set it to a double. Now, what I'm using here is a computed property. I'm going to create this thing here, but what it's set to, it might be different depending on what the segmented control is. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say, hey, when you create this, do some logic to figure it out. So I'm going to say if tip amount segmented control dot selected segment index equals 0, return 0.10. Else if selected segment, tip amount segmented control dot selected segment index equals 1. So it's 0 indexed because it's an array underlying it there. I'm going to say return, that has to be 0 point that, excuse me. I'm going to say return 0.15. And finally, else return 0.2. And that should do. And those don't need to have that, and that should be all right. Cool. Oh, can't be computed. Excuse me, that'll be var. Get out of here. Okay. Now, sorry about that, technical difficulties. Yeah, right? I'm so used to Swift 2.2 syntax. For those of you that aren't familiar, Swift 3 just came out like 2 weeks ago. So everything changes, yay! Yeah. So that should do, okay? So now I'll have the tip percentage, okay? Well, what else do I need to have? I need to have what the total bill amount is, right? So I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to say let bill amount double. And I have to explicitly set the type here because I'm going to cast it. Equal double. Now the reason I have to cast it to a double is that it's going to start as a string. It's assuming that it could be any sort of letters, words. It's a string literal type in the text field. So I'm going to grab what's in that and instantly cast it to a double. So I'm going to say user input text field dot text. Cool, I got that now too. Okay. So, it's going to make me, yep. When you get those little red bullseyes over here, bullseye means Apple or Xcode can fix it for you. So go ahead and click on it. And if it says fix it, yep, go ahead and fix it, and you'll be good to go. Okay? When you get the little yellow thing here, that's fine. That's only saying, hey, you haven't used it yet. That's probably it. How am I on time?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, perfect. Okay. So let's think about, I have how much I should tip, and I have, or excuse me, what percentage I want to tip at, and I have the total bill amount. What do I need to calculate?
The total amount of tip, and then you also need to calculate the total bill.
Yep.
Just adding to.
Very good. That's all I have to do, right? So if you're new to code, this may seem confusing, all these other things here, but focus on what you're trying to do. If you were doing this by hand, I would say, well, I need to do this calculation, and I need to figure out I'm going to tip whatever it is. Maybe it's $6, maybe it's $3, whatever. But I'm going to take the total bill amount, I'm going to take the percentage, I'm going to multiply them. That's my tip. And then I also need to calculate, well, wait, what's the total bill? Because that's the worst part of giving a tip is having to do that math. So then I'm going to add those two together. I need to display them both. So let's do that. I'm going to say let tip amount equal bill amount times tip percentage. That's easy enough. That's one calculation. And then I need to add that and get the total bill amount. So I'm going to create another constant. Let total bill amount equal. And I need to add the two together. So I'm going to go ahead and grab. Well, I have bill amount right here, right? So I'm going to say bill amount plus tip amount. So cool, I've done some internal calculations. Now I need to display them in a label. We are almost done here. So I'm going to grab these two labels, and I'm going to change their .text property using string interpolation. So I'm going to say tip amount label .text equals, and I'm going to go ahead and add a string here, and I'm going to add my calculation in the middle. Swift supports string interpolation, which basically says create your string, drop your variable in the middle, it'll cast it to a string for you, and just combine them all. So I'm going to say tip amount, just like it says over there. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a backslash. That's the one right under your delete key. I'm going to wrap in parentheses, and I'm going to say tip amount. Now I'm going to do the same with total bill amount, and I'm going to say total bill amount label dot text equals. Now I need to set that again, total bill amount. And I'm going to use string interpolation again. Total bill amount. There we are. And again, Xcode has super awesome autocomplete. Use autocomplete whenever you can. That's why it's okay to use super long, very explicit names for things, because you'll never type more than like 3 or 4 letters of it. So if you're the type of coder who's used to like working in a text editor and you name things like X and I and J, don't do that. It's okay to use super long names, because then anytime anybody else looks at your code, or better yet, when you look at your code a month from now, you don't have to go, what the hell was that? You'll know what you meant. All right. Let's sanity check it for any errors. Looks like it should work. Let's run it. I'm going to say, let's do a 20% tip. And let's say, let's pick something easy to calculate. $100, sure, that's easy.
It's the easiest.
That pretty much is, right? Yeah. I can do that math. And now I'll calculate it. And it works. First try, that never happens. No, thank you. Hold the applause. Y'all need to work on your sarcasm. All right, so question for you. If I click calculate right here with an empty text field, what do we think is going to happen? It's going to crash. Oh, there's that lovely red shade of errors here. Why is that happening?
The text field, would it be considered null?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening here. So, now we have that crazy stack trace, all that, you know, it'll throw out the error message. Don't worry about all that. What you're looking for here, it's usually going to be the first thing that pops up in the debugger, is where it says fatal error. Unexpectedly found nil while unwrapping an optional value. Raise your hand if you're not familiar with the concept of optionals. Okay? Raise your hand if you are familiar with the concept of optionals. What y'all tired? Did you do arms day yesterday? No, all right. So, okay. So, optionals are Swift's unique way of dealing with nil. Somebody tell me what nil or null or none is.
Absolutely nothing. It's not even considered 0. It's just nothing.
Yes, excellent. Okay. So an easy mistake to make as a newer coder is you think, oh, nil, like 0, right? No. 0 has a defined value. It's 0. Null or nil or whatever is actually undefined. So the difference here is easy to see. If they entered 0 here, the calculation will work just fine. 0 is a number we can do math with. Undefined does not. It's like entering infinity there. It's the same thing. So when the user hits calculate, it says, oh, okay, I need to get 20% of infinity, which isn't doable. So we need to handle that. Well, the way you handle that is with optionals. Okay? And optional, I'm going to talk here right up until the end, and then you can, in the tip calculator app on makeschool.com/academy, it'll run you through all this. So if we don't finish protecting this from optionals, that's completely okay. You can always grab me later. I'm happy to explain it and walk you through it as well. But optionals are its way of saying, hey, this could contain nil. And the way that Apple denotes that is with a question mark. All right, so if I go up here and I say, so let's say right in here, I say bill amount double with a question mark, okay? Before it was, hey, the type was double. Now it's double? I'm Ron Burgundy? All right, so what the question mark says is, hey, this could contain a value that's a double, or it could contain nil. Be careful. All right? Well, anytime your code gets exposed to nil, explosion, crash, uh-oh, bad reviews on the App Store. In other languages, you would have to say, like, if this does not equal nil, go ahead and do some stuff. Swift actually has it built in to where we have to say, hey, let's assume this could be radioactive, this could be nil. And then in writing our code, we have to unpackage it. You can do that in a couple ways. You can do that right here with an exclamation point. This is called a bang operator. It's saying, I'm sure there's no nil in there. Go ahead and just unwrap that darn thing. We're safe. This is a bad idea, because very often you expose yourself to, if there was nil, you could have a crash. The correct way to do it is to take bill amount and say, okay, I need to optionally bind this here. Okay, and I'm going to do this right here. So I'm going to say, if let bill amount equals bill amount. And I'm going to run this code inside of it here. And this should protect me. I'm going to move this inside here as well. Now what I've done here is I've used optional binding. So in the last 2 minutes here, let me explain what this is here. If let means exactly that. You could also do if var. So it says, go ahead, this is what the Swift compiler is doing under the hood. It's saying, look at this. Now I use the same name, but I could change this to any other variable name here. I can change it to unwrapped bill amount. I could change it to X. I could change it to dinosaur. As long as I change the code inside here, we're fine. And what it's going to do is it's going to say only bind this. Only create a new variable. I'm just recreating this variable with a value, but only create this if this is not nil. So it's going to peek inside my optional. It's going to take the lid off. It's going to say, does it have a value? Yep. OK. Go ahead and assign that value to whatever I call this. And now, inside of this code block, so inside of these brackets, I know I can work safely like it's not an optional. So I don't have to force unwrap it. I don't have to do all that stuff there. And it's our way of making sure that if this runs and there's a nil value, it'll never bind this. This will never exist, so this code will never run. If it does have nil, that won't happen. If it doesn't, it'll run this just as normal. So last thing we do here, about 60 seconds left. Let's go ahead and run this, and let's see if I missed anything. And I'm just going to calculate right out the gate. I'm going to set it to, let's say, 15% of undefined. Oh, I guess not. I missed something. OK, well, there's your homework. Go ahead and see if you can fix this here. The tip calculator app, its tutorial itself, also uses something called stack views, which is Apple's really cool way to simplify design. Feel free to do that. I would also encourage you, if you kept up with me and finished all this, go ahead and take a look at one of the tougher tutorials, like Make School Notes. Or, if you're really feeling froggy, see if you can try Makestagram. Okay? My name is Mike. I'm with Make School. This is Evan. If you have any questions, come see us. Thank you all so much for participating. Evan?
Real quick. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.